Well, welcome to another live stream. Welcome to Life Journey Production Studios. This is Keith, and I see most of you in the chat already know my name. So welcome tonight. Just a reminder, we are going to be covering 1.5 topics tonight. We're going to be looking at lenses, lots of conversations about lenses. Going to talk just a little bit about the whole idea of lenses and what they do and types of lenses. I'm going to share, I have two lenses plugged back into cameras. I have this lens right here, and then I have my other camera, which we'll be cutting to tonight. But yeah, let me know. It looks like 5x5 audio and video is good. We are going to look at a 50 millimeter lens tonight, actually hooked up to my camera number 1, so that should be fun. I'm going to bring some lenses here on my desk. In fact, I may pull that lens off and talk about it tonight. But yeah, thank you very much for that, Grish. I hit record. It is now recording. So it's summertime. It's July. It's the last Tuesday live in July. Then we're going to move on to August. It has cooled off quite a bit here in what we call the Tri-Cities, three cities. There's really like 7 cities around us, but the main 3 are Richland, Pasco, and Kennewick. I live in Richland. For years, I lived in West Richland, so I never really liked Tri-Cities because it made it sound like there was no West Richland, even though you could say there's West and East Richland, but it doesn't work that way. One is Richland proper, and the other one is named West Richland. Anyway, I've been in the Tri-Cities off and on. Grew up in this area, then moved to Pennsylvania, was in Pennsylvania from 3rd grade all the way up to my junior summer. And then my family decided to drive a bunch of vehicles clear across the continental United States back to our home area in Washington. And probably this area is mostly known for its involvement in the atomic bomb, nuclear reactors out here. My father never worked on that project, but when my dad was involved, he was a nuclear physicist, which means he designed the core reactors for nuclear fission. So maybe that's where I get my tendency for gear and building studios, and who knows. So again, tonight we're going to be talking about lenses. I have one right here in my hot little hand, and we're going to talk about these tonight. But before I do that, we're going to just say hi to everybody in the chat here, and I'll see if I can't get things working tonight. It looks like it's working. Let's put chat on the air. There you go. That just came up. Let's go back through the chat. Tony had the first seat tonight. Congratulations, Tony. It's good to have you. Right behind him was Doug. Go check out these guys' channels. Grish is here tonight. He said, hi, everyone. Chio is in the house. So good to have you, Chio. DJ Ware in the house as well. And sounds like a good number. Chio has 5 lenses, and looks like DJ Ware has 5 as well. Good to have you in the house. Craig, thank you for joining us. Looking forward to this discussion about lenses. Yeah, I don't talk a lot about cameras and lenses here on the channel, but I am very passionate about photography and have lots of gear. Last week we talked about lights matter. And as I was just thinking about all of the time we spend here on the channel talking about live streaming tech, HyperDecks, ATEMs, Super Source, multi-view. By the way, I do have a video releasing tomorrow morning. It's going to be a little thorough, in-depth look at the 9.5.1 update for Blackmagic Design's control software, or actually officially called ATEM Software Control. And both of those updates, 9.5, which I covered a few weeks ago, have a firmware update. I also cover that in my video. I also cover how to use the new webcam out. A couple ideas about that. If you go back a few weeks, you'll see me show how you could put program and multi-view for your ATEM Mini Pro now, displaying it. But I also cover how you can use your prompter now with USB-C webcam out on your ATEM Mini Pro or your Extremes. And so that video is coming out tomorrow. Pretty thorough dive in. It's about 22 minutes long. It's got all my graphics, got days involved in editing that video. It kind of forces me to keep things at the level that I try to keep them at. Okay, so I think, let me just go through here. I see, Chio, I think I said hi to you. If I didn't, there's your comment about his 5 lenses. And then we'll get down here. Again, thank you, Grish, for the reminder to record. And that helped me out tonight because I forget every week. And also for the comment on the audio and video being 5x5. I don't know why the chat is delayed tonight, but Ernesto, it's good to have you here. Happy Tuesday to you as well. It's great to have you. Yeah, and also, let's just go back up here. DJ Ware has a great channel. Go check that out. And if you haven't already, I brought that up earlier. Doug has a channel. I love going over to Doug's channel. I haven't done it in a while, so I apologize, but I will get over there. Tony said hi to everyone. That's really cool. I do have trouble with my Sky cameras. I don't know what the deal is. I updated OBS again today to the newest version, and it's running chat just fine. But I have not been able to get my PC to stay connected to my USB Instant 360 cameras. I have 2 of them. They seem to work in the studio during the week. And then when I go to use them for live stream, they seem to quit working. I don't know what the bug is, but we'll figure that out. Smash the like. Chris says, thank you for already smashing that like button. I sure appreciate it. Good to have Hank here in the house. Greet you. Jay had a live stream last night. I'm planning on watching that tonight. I didn't get the chance to watch TVJ's live stream, so go check that out as well. And evidently, Chio, I did say hi. So, okay, so Tony is saying, just picked up the prompter people Pocket Q V2 teleprompter. Prompter People Pocket Q V2 teleprompter. Well, we'll have to look that up. Maybe let me know what drew you to that. I think you were looking for something that had HDMI input. So it'll be interesting for... oh, sorry. Maybe it's camera shy. Wait for it. So maybe let us know in the comments tonight, Tony, about that prompter, what drew you to it. And maybe one of these evenings we can talk about prompters again. Many of you know that I have the HyperDeck Shuttle HD, sits here on my desk. I think I can cut to Super Source here and you guys can see this. Let's put the logo on. So let's see. I can slide it in here, move this lens out of the way. So here is the HyperDeck Shuttle. And it has the ability to play videos back. It has this nice controller here, but it also has the ability to do teleprompter. What I love about the Elgato prompter, which I have here on the right-hand side of the desk, is that I can drag chat over there. I have chat over there now because it's a monitor. I also can use OBS to bring the program in if I want to use it as a confidence monitor. I use it all the time for consulting. So I'll have my Zoom consult up there, my Zoom client, so we can look at each other face to face. A lot of times they'll be glancing at a monitor to the right or the left above their camera, and I'll be able to look right into the monitor, which is a huge advantage in my opinion. Just fixed the lighting here. Sorry about that. I do have the ability to change lighting around, but back to this. So you have a teleprompter mode and you make Word documents, and then you just convert them or export them as rich text format, so RTF, and instead of the normal Word document format. So you just save as, and then you just take out the little disk. Let's find it in the back. And then you can, oops, put this up to the, you just put it on here. I'll hold it up right here. It's, so you just put it on here. And then once you change in the menu system, which is kind of recessed, it's kind of a hassle, but, and you want to go full screen when you're using the menu system because it's on the bottom left-hand side, but you can move it wherever you want. But when you have the menu set to the format teleprompter, then it will automatically start reading these files, and then you can just go forward and back through them. And you can also have video files on here at the same time. So if you know the history of the HyperDeck, it was always kind of a pain because HyperDecks, if you didn't have everything the same format, frame rate, video size, like say HD, 1920 by 1080p, 2997 frames per second or 30 frames per second. If all of those files weren't the same, then you would not see them. You would see only a certain amount of files, but it wouldn't see the other format. But with this, you still have to have the video files all the same format, but you can also have those regular rich text format files on here, and then you can use it as a teleprompter. The nice thing about this is it displays HDMI, so you could use it with any HDMI monitor, and that could be your teleprompter. Where with the Elgato prompter, you just open up the software, type what you want the prompter to say, set the speeds, and then you have complete control over it. You can also use the Stream Deck, which I have the Stream Decks here on my desk. I have two of them, the Stream Deck Pro and the Stream Deck Plus, which has the knobs on it, which is really cool controller if you use it with like the Wave audio app. I have it mainly to do editing in the Premiere Pro, and I rarely use it, but it's a great tool, and I highly recommend getting Stream Deck. So this is the Shuttle, and that's been one of the options I've had for teleprompting. And I've done teleprompting on here before, like I'll copy the PDF clips on a product that I'm talking about here on the channel, and then I can put that on a big screen and just read it off to you. Since I got the prompter, I would just switch to the other angle, change up my lighting, and then I would be looking right into the prompter, and then I can look right into the prompter and talk to you guys face to face and read things at the same time. Like right now I can read Tony's chat because I have the chat popped out into my prompter, and it says, yep, came with a monitor with multiple inputs, one being HDMI. So he's talking about that prompter that he brought up earlier. And if I just scroll up here to the chat, and again, I'm looking right into the camera as I do this, that prompter that Tony's talking about is the Prompter People Pocket QV2. That is a mouthful. 3 Ps, a QV2. So that's kind of cute. So again, there's the details why Tony got that. And again, I can look directly into the monitor. And then I have the Stream Deck set up so I can change lighting. So I'll change back to the camera view, pop the lighting back, and now we're back on the desk, and this is the Shuttle. So the disadvantage of this is it doesn't come with a monitor. It has no LED display, so you have to use the monitor, and that's why they have the menu to bring up on the HDMI output display what you have the settings at, and then also you can change the settings, and then you can get that off the screen by hitting the menu button again, and then you can just, and that menu button's right here. A little bit better look at it. And then what I love about this when I'm playing videos back, if you push jog and scroll at the same time, then you can just scroll slowly forward and back through your videos. So it's great for just showing clips of a video. Wanted to reverse a waterfall, you could do that, or reverse a soccer score. So I love this tool. It'll record video. It has HDMI in. See if I can get it there. You have HDMI in, HDMI out, then you have the power. You have a USB-C port to be able to record to SD drives. You have the disc that can go in it right in the back slot. And so it's a great tool. And then you also have it be able to control it. Like all the HyperDecks, you can automate it through the control software, which I think, in my opinion, it's one of the huge advantages of the HyperDecks is they can be automated. Now, a while back, I put together a Raspberry Pi, and this is this case. This case is a M2 case, and it's by Argon. It's Argon 1 M.2, and so in here I have what are those called? Old age. Anyway, has two HDMI outs. One's to monitor, one's to control and see what you're playing. So you put one would be into your ATEM. And so I downloaded some Raspberry Pi. I like apple pie. Raspberry Pi software. It's Playout B, and Playout B has version 2.0 available, I think, for Mac and PC, but the Raspberry Pi version isn't available yet. And what it does is it emulates HyperDeck. So I think it's like $50 one-time purchase, same price as MixFX, the app for your iPad, your iPhone, so you can control your ATEM control software. But this Raspberry Pi emulates a HyperDeck. So I built this live. You can go back on my channel and see the build, and then it will play back videos. Again, it doesn't have a monitor, there's no LCD screen. And what I really like about the HyperDecks is the little mini LCD screens. And I'll turn this camera around just a little bit. I have a desk camera tonight. So I could do this, and we'll go back to Super Source. And so here are the little mini LED screens. You can barely see the one here on my HyperDeck HD Plus. This is the old HyperDeck Mini. And I love having these little LCD screens so I can see what video is queued up, ready to go. And if I rotate this just a tad bit more and tilt it down, mess up my shot here. This one actually has my intro video on it, which I played as we were starting the live stream. So that's the Shuttle. Just get that situated. So we'll slide that out of the way here a bit and bring the lens back over. And I want to aim this up just a tad bit more. Go. Try to just get the lenses in the shot. So this lens right here, which we're going to spend some time talking about, is my 16 to 35. This is an f4. And if you don't know what f4 stands for, that's the aperture, that's the stop. And so f4 means it'll only go down to f4. The range on this one, if I can remember here, to 77 mil, but I don't remember how high this will go. So, and again, f4 just means that's how much light you're going to be able to let in. These are L lenses, all the Canon L lenses, which I have, that have the old EF mount, not the new RF, which I have to adapt if I want to use it with my EOS R camera. And that's what you guys are seeing me in right now is my Canon EOS R. I don't have an R5 or an R6 or R10 or all of those. I just have an EOS R. I'd love to have another one. They just will not come down in price, but I'd love to have another one. But the nice thing about this is it fits my cameras with an adapter. I can make it fit my EOS R, and that's obviously an RF to a EF mount. And then these have... this has stabilization built in. I have it off right now. I usually turn it off when I'm just using it on the cameras in the studio, just that less wear and tear on the camera. But when it's on, obviously it creates stabilization, and that's a great feature in some of the new lenses. The L lenses are just the better glass, and so you can see this glass. Let me shoot that way. So this is F4 glass, and that's a stark difference between like a prime lens, and that's what we're going to compare it to right now. So now this will go from 16 to 35. So it is a zoom lens, and the difference between, and this one does everything inside. I'll let you guys see it like this in the shot. You should be able to see that. Can you see it? Going in and out. See it breathing inside the glass. So this one doesn't zoom in and out. It stays the same length. I really like it. But again, it's only adjusting from 16 to 35, and you could manually adjust it like this, 35. So it's a very short throw. And then, like I said, when you're watching it, got fingerprints on the front of this, so we'll have to clean that glass off. So we'll clean that. Then I always have UV protectors on my glass. So we'll just clean this real quickly, front and back. And it does get fingerprints on it, especially when you're playing with them like I was tonight, taking photographs. But we will clean that. And again, I will replace these. This is just to protect my UV filters, just meant to protect my glass. This is what it looks like without the UV protector on it. And again, you should be able to see it zooming in and out right there. Just kind of breathes in, breathes out, but it doesn't extend. So we'll screw this back on. And this will only go down to F4. So shutter speed has to deal with how long the shutter's open, the more light gets in. So if it's a quick shutter speed, that's real quick light. So on a real bright day, you're going to use a really fast shutter speed. Or if there's certain things you're trying to accomplish, like you want to freeze someone in the air, set your camera to 240 frames per second, and then have someone jump, take the shot, and it should freeze them in the air. But if you want that blur, then you'd put it on a tripod and maybe shoot at 30, shutter speed of 30, and then that's definitely going to blur whatever goes by, and you can blur it even more. And so the aperture, if it's set to like 1 aperture, then that's how much light it's going to let in. That's how wide the glass is. Now this one does have the ability to change the aperture, and the newer lenses are able to do that. So the nicer the glass, the better the build, the type of camera it fits on. This is for a 35 millimeter camera, so it's a full frame. So this is going to be able to see the full frame of the camera. It's not a crop sensor. And if you don't know the difference, a lot of the newer cameras, especially the smaller ones, they have smaller chips in them, and that chip is what receives the information, processes it like film. And so film cameras, most of them, not all of them, movie cameras had some unique sizes, but most cameras had 35 millimeter openings, and you put a 35 millimeter lens on it, then you get a 35 millimeter spread, and that's how wide the camera can see. Like right now, I'm set at, let's change to this. You look here. I'm set at about 29 mil. Let's crank this to 35. So there's 35 mil. So that is a true 35 millimeter width. If I want to go wider, then I'm going to back up to 24. You can see it's even wider. So this lens that I have on my EOS R This is my, which one is this? It's my 24 to 70, and this will go down to 2.8 aperture. And so what does aperture do? The aperture, which opens and closes the blades, right, to let more or less light in, the aperture and the way the lens is designed actually affects what the background looks like. Right now, this lens is at a 6.7 aperture. Let me crank it down to, and look how clear the background is. Let me crank it down to the lowest aperture, which on that lens is 2.8. So we're going to do that right now. So now look at the background. So the aperture, because it opens the lens so wide, I'm in real good focus, but everything behind me we call bokeh begins to blur because that light doesn't have time to get all the way back there and back to you, the focus. So as this thing is going by doing frames of video, you're getting a good look at me. I'm clear, I'm in focus, but the things behind me just don't, the light doesn't get a chance to go back, expose it perfectly, and come back to the sensor. And that's the big difference. Sorry, let me change microphones here so I don't have to have this in my face. Sorry about that. So again, I got excited because we're talking about something I'm passionate about. So the bokeh or bokeh behind me, that blurriness is because of the lens. Now, this lens only goes down to 2.8. We're about to fire up this lens. And let me see what it is right now. This lens, see, I think this is the right light, but it's too bright tonight because I have this opened up. Well, we'll leave it like that. You can see the background behind me is pretty blurred. Also, this is a 50 mil. So it's not a variable lens. This is a prime lens. We call it prime because it's just 50 mil. You can't go in and out like the 16 to 35 or the one over my shoulder right here. That's the prompter behind me. And you can see how blurry it is. I'll get out of the way. And it's focused on me. Now I have it set to manual focus, and I focused it before we started tonight. So we're going to switch back to camera 2. And I'm going to adjust this. Hang on a second. Let me adjust the light down. Now this is at 1.2, and you can see how blurry the background is now. And it's almost too bright in here, even though I changed the lights, because this lens is so wide open. I could get a pretty good, decent shot with all the desk lights off. Not quite perfect, but you can see F1.2 Apature, which opens up. It sounds like it's a smaller number, so you'd think it would be a narrower opening, but in reality, it's just the reverse. So the wider the aperture, the lower the number. So 1.2 makes this lens really huge, and we're going to look at this lens here in a second so you guys can see this monster. So let's turn these lights back on. We'll go back to that lighting setup. So this is almost good lighting, still a little hot because this is opened all the way up to 1.2. And this lens, out of all of my lenses, is the widest aperture or the lowest number. So again, it'll go all the way down to 1.2, and then we'll go back over here and we'll crank it all the way open. It goes to f16, and now you can see, even though it's my 50 mil, if I take it up to f16, everything behind me is in good focus because the light, again, has plenty of time to get to the wall and back to you because I have this cranked way down. You can actually see it in the camera. So I want to show that to you guys. So let me steal my phone here real quick. And we're going to go back to Super Source. And if you look in there, you can see it. It's closed that giant glass all the way down to that little teeny hole. So that's what f/16 looks like. So you can tell you don't need a big lens to do that. You only need a small lens. In fact, let's change this real quick. We'll change camera 1 to be that camera. So again, very, very tiny little hole inside that camera, but yet look how wide the glass is. So let's open it back up again. I'm gonna set this down and we'll go back to this view. Now this is an aperture of 5.6. You can see that hole now. And that's usually what I shoot in my live streams. My camera's at 5.6. You can then see what that looks like. This is about what I normally shoot at, so you can see the wall behind me, even though you guys rarely see this angle, and you definitely rarely see a 50mm lens on here, but you can see how wide that hole is. And then one more time, let's open this back up. We're back up to 1.2, and you can see it is wide open. The aperture isn't closed at all. I know there's a little glare. I think you can see that better if I kill the lights. I'm still reflecting. Let's see if I can block it with this box. So yeah, see, it's pretty much wide open now. And that is as wide as you can get this. And you can see how blurred the background is. So the smaller the number, the wider the aperture, and a variable aperture lens has the ability to close and open it, and you can adjust that. So again, why is that important? Because you're controlling how much light you get in, and if you just want it on the bride, and you're taking the picture of her wedding dress, and you don't want any of the background to be in focus, you want it to be there, but if you just want everybody to see the bride, then you can set your camera at 2.8. It's probably a good aperture. If you get down to 1.2 like I'm in right now, you can actually start losing focus on your nose. Watch what happens as I creep in to this lens. See how far I have to move for it to go from focus to unfocus? That's how finite the focus is. So if I back up too far, you got my nose in focus, my eyes are dropping out, now my ears are dropping out of focus, and now even my nose is dropping out of focus. So again, you could have autofocus set on and it would breathe in and out, focusing on me. But if you're shooting the video and you know you're gonna set, you wanna use a low aperture like this, you're gonna wanna pre-focus it. You're gonna wanna have your light adjusted, and right now, because it's so wide open, these lights in my normal setting are too bright for it. So we're gonna go back to camera 2. So that's a little look at the difference between apertures. So I'm at 2.8 right now in this room. I'm gonna zoom back into about 29. And as that focuses on me, you can see this is a great aperture for like a bridal photograph. You can still see what's behind me, but it's not in sharp focus, so it draws your eye. And then if you make sure you get this little reflection in the eyes, then everybody will be looking right into your the client's eyes. And if I put my hands up, I do have autofocus set on this, so it literally is focus breathing right now. So as I go in closer and out, this is trying to focus on my eye because I have eye detect on this camera. A little harder with glasses on, but Canon has a pretty good autofocus science. So 2.8. So the aperture right now on this lens, the 24-70, goes down to 2.8. Now I'll crank it all the way up to a real high aperture. Sorry about my face in the lens. This goes up to 22 as well. And again, I have auto ISO on, so it's adjusting the room, adjusting for the lighting, and already has decided what the color balance is, which is a video we're going to do here pretty soon. But you can see it's breathing, it's pumping in and out. So when you have everything set that way, you got to realize that your picture is going to change in the background as you're moving around. But what I do love about this conversation tonight is all kinds of lenses are available, all kinds of L lenses for Canon. The regular lenses, you're going to probably see something a little bit different, where this lens right here is f.4. That means it'll be f.4 all the way out and all the way in. So if I'm at 16 mil or I'm at 35 mil, so that's 16, that's 35 mil. It doesn't change the aperture. f4 to f22, I believe, on this lens will go that full distance from 16 to 35. Variable aperture lenses don't do that. A variable aperture lens will actually list two apertures. Like it might say f4 to f5.6 or f5.6 to f6.7 or something like that. It'll be a variable aperture. So if you're really wide, it will be one aperture will be the lowest you can go. And if you're really narrow, one aperture will be as low as you can go. So keep that in mind, because the lower the number, the more light it will let in. So if you're doing nighttime photography, if you want to do photography in low light, then the lower aperture numbers will really help you out. And so that is just a little bit about these lenses. So we talked about aperture, and shutter speed is the same thing. Now, when you're doing video, you want to use the shutter rule, which is double. So if I'm shooting at 29.97, which is what I'm videoing at tonight, 1920 by 1080, high definition, I'm streaming at 29.97 frames per second. So you want to double that. So I have my shutter speed set to 60. That's as close as I can get. If I was shooting 30 frames per second, it would be spot on. If I was shooting 60 frames per second, I would want my shutter speed set for 120. And it's just a rule, because what happens is that the video looks more natural when you double the shutter speed. Is it perfectly true science? Some of the new cameras, some of the new technology, you can play around with shutter speed, but the general rule for years has been double the shutter speed of what your film speed is. So if you're doing 30 frames per second, you would double that to 60. If you're shooting 60 frames per second, you would double that to 120. If you're shooting 120 frames per second for slow-mo, you would double your shutter speed to 240 frames per second. And that should get you, when you slow that slow motion footage down, it should get you that natural, smooth video that we all like. And that's the real reason why you do shutter speed. Now, if you're doing photography, you're taking one shot or quick multiple shots. And so you can set the shutter speed at whatever you want it to be. But remember, the longer the shutter's open, the more light it lets in. So if you're in the middle of the daylight and you have a lens that goes down to f.4 and you want your shutter speed set at 30 frames, or at 30, a shutter speed of 30, then guess what? You may have to adjust your aperture to a higher number to let less light in, because you're slowing down the shutter speed lets more light in. So just imagine this is the shutter. So it opens, lets light in, and then closes. So the longer it's open, the more light comes in. And so the faster the shutter speed, the less light it'll let in. So if you want fast shutter speed and stopping motion, super fast, then you would have to have a pretty wide aperture at night to catch that blur that you're looking for. So keep that in mind. Shutter speed in film usually is double what the frame rate is, but when you're shooting photographs, it's usually going to be whatever you want the shutter speed. But remember, your ISO, your sensitivity of your sensor in your camera, that's one setting. Let's more or less exposure on that sensor. Then you have the aperture, which lets in more or less light. 1.2, lots of light. F22, very little light, getting down to a real small pin. That slows down how much light gets to the sensor. The aperture can speed up or slow down how much light gets to the sensor. That also affects the background blur, because if the light doesn't have time to get to that back wall and back again before the shutter opens and closes again in video, then the background's going to be blurred. And right now I'm at f22, and it's a very teeny tiny pinhole in my camera lens, and yet it looks just exactly the same, except for everything is actually more in focus behind me. Now let's fix that. Now we're back to my traditional 5.6, and there's just a little bit more blur behind me, not a lot, but a little more. So those are two of the lenses. Let's turn this off. Pop this off, and we'll take a closer look here. Gonna have to hurry up. My battery's getting low on my phone. Okay. One more time. Fix this. Okay, this is that 50mm lens. Let's put a cover on my camera. So I pulled the lens off. Let's put a cover on that. So to better look at that, 50mm, it's wide open right now. I left it that so you can see how big the opening is. So you could go even higher than 1.2. The glass would be even wider. The little hole in the back would be wider. So the outside glass has to be wide enough to get to this edge to that edge as it spreads out 50mm. If this was 35mm, which would be even wider, then this glass would have to be wider to have an f.2. So I'll give you an example. This is my 85mm. This is 1.2 as well. Double check that this 50 is, yeah, 1.2. Here's where you see the aperture right here, 1.2, right here on the side of the lens. And then this is the 85mm. This is a beautiful 72mm Canon L Lens. It's the original version. They have a new version of this now. Actually, this is the second version, L2. 85mm EF 1.2. So you can see how big the sensor is. Now, I don't have it open right now. You can see it's set at probably 5.6 right now, but this will open up to 1.2. So that aperture shutter in there, you can barely see it, but you can kind of see it in there. That opens and closes those blades. open and close, and this will go all the way open to 1.2 as well. So I'm gonna pop this on this camera so you guys can see it as well. Hopefully it won't knock the camera over because it's a very heavy lens. I'm not sure what's happening right now. It is not connecting. And I rarely use this lens. I should sell it. It's a beautiful lens. You can see how big it is in my hand and how big the blades are. Again, 72 mil, and it has a UV protector on it as well. And that's what it looks like with the UV protector off. That's huge glass. For some reason right now it's not connecting to adjust the aperture. I'm going to try it one more time. This is what an 85 millimeter looks like. And you can see, you want to talk about what 1.2 does on an 85 compared to my 50. My 50 mil, let's see if we can get it in focus. You can see the focus plane right here, out of focus, in focus, out of focus. So right now, my eyes are in focus, now my nose, and now I'm gone. This is 85 mil at 1.2, and you can see the bokeh look right here over my shoulder. It's pretty crazy. So this is 1.2 on the 85 millimeter version 2 by Canon, and I'll get my eyes into focus right there. So crazy, but it's working, and great portrait lens. 100% recommend a tripod. The talent freezing in place or sitting down, because if they move just a little bit, you will lose focus. Now, if you have autofocus set on, this one is a little bit interesting. It zooms in and out with autofocus. It's a pretty crazy lens. Even though it's a prime, it doesn't zoom in and out because it's going from 50 mil to 85 mil. It's always 85 mil, but what it does is it breathes in and out for focus, and it literally compresses in and out. I'll take the lens off while it's out like this so you guys can see it. And there's what it looks like when it's out focusing. So literally, when it's off, it doesn't work. You have to have it plugged into the camera to get this to go in. You don't want to force it in. So when you're using this lens, you want to make sure that this is all the way in before you take it off the camera. So I will put that back on later and fix that. I can still put the cover on there, but you can see what it looks like wide open. Let's go back to my super source here. And it's wide open all the way inside. What a crazy lens. To take the back off, you can actually see the desk. You see how wide that is. It's a crazy wide lens, and you can put protective cover on it, even though it is all the way out from focusing. 85 millimeter 1.2 prime lens. It does not have a variable 35 to 85 millimeter zoom lens. It is a prime lens. You can see it's nice rubber. This is a nice lens. They have a new version of this that doesn't focus like this anymore. One more lens I wanted to bring on the table. This is my 70 right here to 200. And this is an expensive lens because it is a 2.8. I think you guys can see that right there. 2.8. And so this will go to an aperture of 2.8. It has some unique settings on it. This is the distance of throw for focus. You have autofocus and manual. You've got stabilization, 2 modes of stabilization, so it adjusts for different types of issues with your holding your camera still. You really want to hold these long lenses if you're at 200 mil really still, or you'll start losing focus, but the stabilization helps you. So if you jiggle it a little bit, the stabilization is supposed to correct for that issue. But this is a zoom lens, so it can zoom in and out, and it does it inside it, so it doesn't pop in and out. So I'll show you guys what this looks like. See if you can see it. Let's take this off. See if you guys can see it adjusting inside. See it going in and out. So that is at 200, and this is at 70. So you can see the blades coming in and out. So this has got some pretty cool technology in it. And again, it's not a variable aperture. Whatever I set it at, 2.8, it's going to be 2.8 from all the way at 70 mil all the way out to 200. And it doesn't have a long throw. Again, it's just a nice little throw right here. So if you wanted to put a zoom motor on it, you could zoom in and zoom out. This is a great photography lens because you can get away from your subject, set this at about 135, and it brings the background in. So one of the things that also happens with these type lenses is that when you start having it set at 70 and then you turn it to 200, it'll look like the mountain behind the person at 70 is further away than when you zoom into 200 mil. Not only does the person come in, the background comes in. So you could actually put someone in front of a sailboat out on the water, go from 70 to 200. At 70, the boat will look really far out of there. And at 200 mil, it'll look very close. That's one of the cool things about these zoom lenses is that 135 mil is completely different than 85 mil. So remember that. So you can actually change the look. So if you're shooting a movie, you may want 35, a super wide lens. And you may want to have everything very blurry in the background or everything very clear. But in some scenes, you really want to create some drama and some urgency when that car's chasing the other car. Then you could go to 135 mil, open the aperture or close the aperture down so you get good crisp focus. And then now you can make that car seem closer to the car it's chasing. So the chase car gets closer to the car it's chasing because you've gone from like 35 mil out to 75 or 135 mil. And that's what's pretty cool about these lenses. Now, I can't really show this to you tonight because it's too far a throw to really show it off. But again, 2.8, so I can get that blurred background that looks really good with portrait photography, but I can't get as much bokeh blurred background as I can with my 50 and my 85 because they're 1.2 and this is 2.8. Now, you can look it up. I'm going to get into the chat here real quick and just catch up with you guys before we talk about my macro lens tonight. And we're going to look at some pictures. So let me set this down. Bring this macro lens over here. And remember, I showed you all the lenses I have on my desk except for the macro lens, which is right here. You guys can see it. Let me put the cover on this. And let's get back into the chat just to get caught up here. So I haven't completely bored you guys to tears here without talking to you. Let's go back to me and the logo. Let me look at the chat right here. Okay. 79% of you answered the poll that you have, do you have more than one camera and lens? So 79%, 80% almost of you guys said that you guys have more than one camera and one lens. So if you haven't answered the poll yet, please do that real quickly. And then I'm going to close it right now. We're at 79% yes. You have more than one camera and one lens. I would be a yes as well. And then out of the rest of you, 21% say that you only have one camera or no cameras at all. So please answer the poll if you haven't already. Let me close that, and we'll shut down that poll in a minute. Okay, definitely want to greet my buddy here now. David Osler is a photographer. What's going on with my focus here right now? There we go. He is a photographer. He has a channel, so check out David Osler's channel. He talks about lenses all the time. I think he's a Sony shooter right now. David, correct me if I'm wrong. Nothing wrong with Sony or Nikon or Fuji, all of those different manufacturers. Lycan, Loomis, all of those cameras. There's so many good cameras out there today. Minolta. I had family members that shot Minolta when I was younger. I just decided to go down the Canon camera track, and because I bought all this glass, I want to buy Canon cameras to match it, and that's one of the tricks. They get you to buy their glass, and then you have to buy adapters to use it with other cameras. But one of the things we haven't talked about tonight, which we will here in a second, but again, hi, David. Thanks for joining us. Good to have you, Joe. Better late than never. As always, good to have you. He talks about depth of field, and that's what we've been talking about tonight. Again, Apature really helps you with depth of field. It's not true as much with like your iPhone. Obviously, the size of the glass, how many blades are inside that lens is going to affect the bokeh. That's why you see such a dramatic difference between my 85 and my 50. They both are 1.2, but the bokeh on this is remarkably different than this. Again, remember, this is an 85 mil, so it really goes in close. So when it gets in close, it has a tendency to make the things that are blurred in the background even look more blurred. And so if they're lights, they'll be that beautiful round, hopefully looking light. So the 50 isn't not as near as blurry in the background, but again, 85 is. So keep that in mind. If you're looking for beautiful bokeh, you have to buy the lens for that. David says, it's been a great show, Keith. Yes, I use Sony. Thank you, David. He says the same thing. It doesn't really matter the brand you use. Yeah, once you know how to use the camera and you know how to adjust the camera and you know what kind of glass you need for a shot. Again, people ask me all the time when I'm doing photography and doing shoots, if there's a perfect lens. And I did a lot of research. My very first lens was the 70 to, or the 24 to 70, which is what you guys are looking at right now. It's the 2.8. And a lot of people told me that 24 wide to 70 mil was a great walk around. They called it a walk around lens, but that's great if you're not doing like bird photography, or there isn't something far away that you want to get a shot of. You're at a football game. For me, it would be Seattle Seahawks, and you're at that football game watching them play the Rams or all the other teams that I've seen the Seattle Seahawks play, and you want to get that shot. Well, a 70 mil is going to really get you close to the players unless you're right down on that first row of seats. And then still, if they're on the other side of the field, they're really far away. That's why you'll see those photographers shooting with those 800 mil lenses. It's crazy, 600 mil lenses. Same lenses that they use for bird photography or wildlife photography. Because remember, if you're trying to get that beautiful grizzly shot, you don't want to be up there with a 35 millimeter lens. Okay, stand still. I want to get a close-up, Mr. Grizz. You don't want a 35 millimeter lens in your hands when you're doing wildlife photography. And the more dangerous the species is, you probably should have a even longer throw glass or 700, 800 millimeter. And those lenses are very expensive. So keep that in mind. Go over to David's channel, subscribe to it, and check out some of his videos on the glass. The Canon 85 millimeter F1.2 is beautiful. Yeah, that lens, all the reviews say the focus is finicky, which is so true. When I use that lens, it's not like a run and gun shoot lens. It's definitely put it on a tripod. I use a manual focus a lot. I'm not going to use the LCD screen on the back of the camera. I'm going to tether it. Hopefully the camera that I have will just tether to an iPad wirelessly, like my EOS R, my Canon 5D Mark IV. But there's other ways you can tether to a monitor. Man, you could even use a ATEM if you wanted to. So again, crazy, crazy lens. So let's just finish up here. Did I miss anything? Yeah, let's see those nostrils. First of all, my mount in my studio won't even hold the 200 up, Joe. So the only way to put the 200 on would be to get a tripod out, which I only have one in the closet in the garage, and set that up. But maybe in one of these videos here soon, we'll put that 200 on outside. I do want to do a live stream from my back patio, so I've been waiting for the wind to die down. I would have done it tonight, but we will do that soon. Yeah, so Chio has been going down the Canon road. A couple other comments there from Joe about focus breathing. Again, yeah, that's when the autofocus, the lens is adjusting in and out, and it drives you crazy. So I really like lenses that don't have a lot of focus breathing in them. This lens right now is doing really well. It is set to autofocus. It is set to auto ISO. And we'll talk a little bit more about ISO here shortly. Even Ben Glacier's camera. I'm not sure what that means, Joe. Help me out there. Okay, let's catch up back here with Tony's comments here. The teleprompter that Tony got came with a monitor with multiple inputs, one being HDMI. So it does come with a monitor. And again, that device, Tony said earlier, is, let me find it here. It's called the Prompter People Pocket Q V2 teleprompter. So check that out. Okay, here's a comment from Tony earlier. I tested MIDI software this week. Pro Tools to emulate a HyperDeck allows mixing and matching video formats. 400 one-time purchase. Wow, that's interesting. Let me write that down. Got my trusty tablet here. MIDI. Okay, I will check that out. Thanks for sharing that. He didn't buy it, he just tested it. So it must have a demo version. There's lots of glass here in the studio. I haven't bought a single new lens in the longest time. I've been eyeballing some RF lenses, but I haven't bought those. That's the lenses that hook directly to my EOS R. They are a little nicer glass and lenses than the old RF models, or excuse me, EF mounts that I have now, but they're very expensive, so I've been waiting and watching those hopefully come down in price. So we talked about shutter speed for video and for photography. Again, faster the shutter speed, the more things are going to get stopped in their tracks, and slower shutter speed, the more motion blur you're going to have. When you're shooting video, you want to double your shutter speed from your film rate, which would be like 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second. So you want to double that number because you're shooting video, not photography. Remember, a fast shutter speed doesn't let a lot of light in, so if you're shooting at night, that's not going to work unless you have the kind of glass that we've been showing off here today, something that gets down there to f4, maybe f2.8 when you're shooting at night. And so the wider the aperture, the less light you need in your studio. That's another thing to realize. And the aperture affects how bright it is in the back of the room as well. So if these lights stay at this temperature, right? If I was just adjusting my aperture and I had my ISO set at a certain exposure and my shutter speed set at 60, then my aperture would make a difference in the light in the back. And I'm going to demo that now because I want you to see that when you don't have auto ISO on, the aperture is going to affect what your studio looks like. So let's try it. Okay, that is an ISO of 800, and that's not going to change. It is set, it's fixed, and see at 800, you can see out my shears. So if I was to just turn up my studio lights, this is not a bad look. Things are kind of dark behind me. I don't like this look. So what I would normally do is I would turn down my f-stop. So I'm at 5.6. And now I'm at, let's get it focused. Is it gonna focus? There it goes. Now I'm at f4. This is similar to my normal look, but I like to be at f5.6. So again, the light's changing in the room with my aperture because my lens sensitivity, the chip, is set to an ISO of 800. And that's like 800 film speed back in the day when you used to buy film. So again, 800 would be film speed that you would probably use in the evening, maybe twilight, but not during the daytime. If it's super bright outside, you're going to want a lower ISO. So let's go down in ISO right now to 400. So this would be 400. Now you can really see out the window. Let's get this focused. There we go. But it's kind of dark behind me, and I'm kind of dark. Now I could change my lighting and go brighter. So here you go. This is normally how my lights are set. So I could go down to f4 at ISO 400. But what happens if I go to 2.8? Let's try that. Now it's too bright. I'm overexposed at ISO 400, so I have two choices. I can turn the lights down, but look, everything behind me is overexposed. And I can't go turn those lights down, right? So I either have to change the Aperture, I'm not going to change my shutter speed because I want to keep it at 60. I'm shooting right now at 29.97 frames per second. So I want my shutter speed at 60, as close to double of that. So I need to adjust my ISO or my aperture. I don't really like this blurred look. So that's 5.6 like I like it. And that's from 400 to 800 ISO. It's not quite bright enough, but you can see the issue. Auto ISO is going to adjust somewhere between 800 and 1600. That's one stop of light, but this is not quite bright enough. But if I don't have auto ISO on, this is what I get. So I'm going to turn auto ISO back on. And again, that sets my exposure to auto, and it adjusts up and down as needed, and you get this kind of exposure, and we'll just leave it at that. So aperture changes the light because it's letting either more in or less in, and if you have your ISO set to a certain setting like 800 or 400 or 1600, then whatever you change in aperture is going to change the way your light looks. So the light you have on your face, the light you have behind you, and I have this room pretty evenly exposed. The light's a little brighter on me than as we get back here. I have a little bit of a hair light on top of my head, but that is how aperture and shutter speed and ISO affect your shot. Now, again, you can turn your camera to manual mode and you have the ability to change all of those. That's what I'm doing. Or you can change your camera to one of the settings like shutter speed mode, which adjusts the ISO and the aperture automatically. So whatever you change the shutter to, it adjusts those other two to get perfect exposure, at least as close as it can get and guess. And then if you hold the button down halfway, it'll read. If you have your camera set up that way, it'll read the light and it'll focus, and then you push it the rest of the way to snap the shot. A lot of people don't know that about cameras, that when you push the button halfway, that's what's reading the light. There's a light meter in there. There's also ability to autofocus if you have autofocusing turned on. If you don't have autofocusing turned on, then you got to push the button halfway down to get a light reading, and then you have to adjust focus manually on the lens, which takes a lot of patience. So the other setting on your camera is like the auto mode or the A mode, which is aperture priority, which means that as you change the aperture with your dial, it'll automatically adjust shutter speed and ISO. And remember, it's automatically adjusting shutter speed, so you may freeze things or you may get a lot of motion in things. You don't have a lot of control over that. So keep that in mind when you're just using aperture priority mode. And then a lot of cameras have bulb mode. That's so you can set long exposures, and pretty exciting. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about tonight is quarter after, and I told you we're only going to go about an hour and a half in these live streams, between an hour and 15 and an hour and a half. So I want to talk about the macro lens, and I want to show you guys some pictures right now that I took. So let's do this. Let's go back to Super Source here. Get my logo on again. Turn chat off the air. Okay, let me change what's in box 2. Again, I'm working in Super Source. We're going to change what goes in that box right there, and we're going to make it my media player 1. Right now, you're just going to see my logo. We're going to turn my logo off, and I'm going to drop some pictures in here. I said tonight that the Joker said macro lenses will take over the world. This was shot with my macro lens. A macro lens is a little different in that it's designed to get really close to your subject. In fact, this macro lens has a 0.5 millimeter, 0.3 millimeter adjustment, so I can get 0.3 millimeters closer. This is also 100 mil, so it already reaches out and grabs things. So I love this macro lens. This shot was taken with the macro lens. So is this shot of Indiana Jones on my shelf. Not super close because I wanted to get everything in frame. This was taken with that macro lens. This is this little computer deal. It goes everywhere with me. It's always on my PC and all of my studios over the year. Computer nut. That was taken with my macro lens. Let's see. Batman and Robin were taken with my lens, and that is this little piece right here. It's pretty dusty, but I got close to Batman and Robin with my macro. So macro lenses are designed to be able to get really close up to things. Here's my Batmobile picture number 1 in the back, right there. So you can see the bokeh, the Batman and the penguin are in focus, but it starts to fall off once you get past the lights on the car. That's one angle. Here is a straight on angle. And I like that shot as well. So again, macro lenses are incredible tools to get up close. And I think in reality, this may be a close second for me. I love doing portrait photography. That means I'm gonna go out there with my 16 to 35, right? And shoot landscapes. That means that I'm getting the ultra wide shots at 16. If I don't need to be that wide, I'll bring it down to 35. This is a lens. I don't really care if it's f4 because most of the landscape shots I'm gonna take are gonna be higher than that. I'm gonna probably have it set at f9. Whatever the sweet spot of the lens is, somewhere in between the lowest and the highest number is what they will say is the best color, the best clearness, clear to the edges of the lens. And if you go to channels like David Osler's channel, he's going to talk about, you know, how when you review a lens, you're going to look at shots of it at different, if it's a variable lens like this, a zoom lens, you're going to look at what it looks like up close. They call it pixel peeping, looking very close at the pixels. Are they getting blurry in the edges? Are they beginning to have color artifacts like moire? Is it staying square? So when you're super wide at 16 millimeter, the more expensive the glass usually means the more square that's going to be when you're super wide. And right now, see, I'm at about 29 and a half. And it looks pretty, the lines look pretty square and pretty straight around me. If I crank it all the way in to 35, that's 35. 24. So that's 24 wide. You can see these lines are still straight, most of them. And that's what you're looking at when you're checking out glass. You want to make sure that when you go to like B&H Photo or any of these photo stores that you can look at those lenses and you want to zoom all the way out, all the way in, take some photographs and really look at them. And that's the disadvantage of those little 3-inch screens is it's really hard for you to see those tiny pixels and see how good that glass really is. To get that back to where it's supposed to be adjusted. So a macro lens has settings on it. This has stabilization, which is really important when you're getting in close to like a bug or a grasshopper and get him perfectly still and get that beautiful shot. Probably set it at f4, maybe 2.8. I don't know. This only goes down to 2.8. And again, it says right on the lenses, right there, it says 2.8. Let's see if I can get it to focus on the lens. That's why I have this view right here. When it's set up right. Oh, did that die? Sure did. My phone died. Let's plug it back in again. Oh. Phone completely died. I plugged it in. give you guys a close-up of this lens before we go tonight. Waiting for my camera to boot back up. Got my little new water jug. It's supposed to twist and this little deal pops up, but I broke it already somehow. I have a new lid coming. But this is a great little water container with a built-in straw. Okay, we fired up here yet? Completely dead. I should have charged my phone before tonight. Okay, well, I'll do my best. Let's turn it on manual focus. There we go. So you can see the options here. See how clear that is? Let me go to full screen right here. Need more focus. There we go. So you have auto mode, manual mode. And these are the settings on a macro lens. So I can move this dial back and forth, full range. I have that setting, and I have that setting. And then again, macro 100, so it says right on it when it's a macro lens. And it is a, turn it that way, image stabilizing, ultrasonic, which talks about the motor for focusing. It's also right there. And then there is 2.8, that's the aperture, and it's fixed, 100 millimeter. And then if you keep going around here, it tells you it's a 67 millimeter, and that's the filter size that you would put on it. And again, I have a UV filter on top of the lens. This was actually bought for me and delivered on a drone, believe it or not. So back to the lens. So that's what it looks like. 2.8. And it is wide open right now. That's a look at my eyeball. So my IT guy borrowed my 100 millimeter lens to do some photography. He loves to do coffee pours. If you've ever seen that in an espresso stand where they'll serve you the espresso in a cup and then they'll do like the different illustrations inside it with the foam. He does that, so he borrowed this 100 millimeter lens for me to try it and had it for a number of weeks. And I had a bad UV filter on it, so I asked him to be super careful. And he gave me the lens back, and then he told me, "Are you in your backyard?" And he delivered a lens, a UV filter to me on the back of his drone, DJI drone. It was pretty incredible. So that's my 100 millimeter. It's for taking macro photographs, and macro photographs are pretty cool. You can get shots like this Joker shot, and Joker says, "Macros rule the world," and you can see what a cool little shot of Joker that is. So if you're wondering what the actual perspective of that is, this is the Joker. So you need a macro lens to get that close to this little sucker. So if you want to take that and get a shot like that, you're going to need a macro lens. And that's why the Joker says macros will rule the world. So anyway, we'll put the Joker Lego guy back up there on the shelf. So that's it for me tonight. The last thing I wanted to talk about was this little device right here. I I told you guys that I had my Rodecaster Pro had a broken USB-C port. I was trying to figure out how in the world could that happen. And what I was doing, I was taking my Wacom 1 tablet, which has a chat on it, and I was setting it down on the cables on the back of my Rodecaster Pro and standing it up against my camera bracket. I was going to show you guys this with my phone, but it's dead, and I'm waiting for it to come back on. Let's see if it's ready to come back on here. So this shows you little details in the bracket on the back. We go back to full screen here. So this is perfect to slide under my Rodecaster Pro, and then it has the little feet on it right here. There's a bigger picture of it, obviously. So it's got the feet right here, and it looked like it would be the perfect height to stand up behind my Rodecaster Pro. We'll get a real quick picture of this. Come on, turn on. There we go. Died again. Let me pull it out. Didn't want to do this tonight, but I'm going to highly recommend this part. Let me set this down over here on the lenses. Oh. So my Wacom tablet is now on this. It's the perfect height. So it'll go in and out. This will go up and down. It actually expands, I believe, but I've never pulled it out. There you go. So it can go even higher. And so this will slip between cables underneath my Rodecaster Pro. And now I am standing my Wacom tablet just like this with this new stand. So I absolutely love it, and it's working great. I will put it back after we get off the air tonight. But so I must have dropped this down and broke the USB-C power cable. It's just a USB-C port. And so this is pretty heavy. And so I think I whacked it on there, and that's what broke it. And so it's been repaired. I don't think I can put this back quickly. Let's see if I can. I actually like that up a little higher. And it's perfect. It stands up my Wacom tablet. I can then operate the chat without too much heartache and say goodnight tonight by putting the last few chats on the air. So what's the name of the camera shop that's in Seattle that's amazing like B&H Photo? I don't see a name up here, Joe. Maybe I missed it. Yeah, maybe one day we'll talk about basic camera fundamentals. I don't get a lot of camera people on my channel. I know that I do have David here, which is amazing to me because he really has a camera focused channel, and he's a professional photographer, a very good photographer. And but I do like to cover the things that make good video, and lenses and cameras make good video, and DSLRs for video are because we could use them for photography too. That's why you don't see a lot of dedicated video cameras in my studio, like Blackmagic cinema cameras. Now, if I was doing more professional video shoots, you might see me upgrade to like a Blackmagic Design 6K Pro. It would definitely have to have ND filters in it. It would definitely have to have really good quality chips in it. And obviously I could use my Canon glass, but do I get distortion in my 16 millimeter? Not that bad. There's a tiny bit, Joe, in that 35 millimeter, 16 to 35. There's a new version out now, I think 15 to 35 that Canon sells. It's even more expensive. It's an RF lens, if I remember right. And Joe liked the eye through the lens. Thank you, Tony. You could put the macro on now. Glazier's photo. Okay. So that's what you were commenting earlier. So Glazier's photo. Writing that down. I'll have to check out their website because I could drive to Seattle. It's about a 2 hour and 50 minutes ride from here. After seeing this, Tony says he wants a new lens or two. Laugh out loud. Yeah, I didn't do this stream tonight, Tony, to cost you more money. I did this stream because I thought looking at lenses, also looking at some macro photographs here from the studio with my macro lens would be fun. I would say if you were going to just get a lens to play around with, get yourself an inexpensive macro lens. I wouldn't invest. You can buy these used now. This is version, let's see, is this version 2? No, this is version 1. This is the Canon Macro EF 100 millimeter 2.8 L lens. There's a version 2 of this. You could buy a used version of this probably for $600-700 now, I would think. I think this cost me $1,200. No, I actually bought this refurbished from Canon, if I remember right. I saved a couple $100. So I think I bought this for like $9.99 when I bought this about 8, 9, 10 years ago now. Most of my lenses that I have in my kit are 5 to 10 years old now. My newest lens is the lens that's on this camera. I haven't switched to it all night, so let's go to what I call the Tony Cam here. So this is what we call the Tony Cam, also my prompter view, and it's a great way to end tonight. So this lens right here is the 70 to 100 mil f4, and that was my newest lens. I got that lens with my EOS, or my Canon 5D Mark IV, and when I bought my EOS R, I didn't buy it with any lenses, so I just bought the body and kept all my lenses. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lenses in my studio, and this is the photograph we started out with tonight. Actually, let me put the photograph up. Here's a picture of my lenses. So the 50 on the left, the 85 next to that, the 100 next to that, left to right. Then my 70 to 200. Then I can't quite see it. Let me go full screen. Then I have my 24 to 105. That's my newest lens. 24 to 70. And then the 16 to 35. I may have bought the 16 to 35 after. After I bought the Canon 5D Mark IV, I may have. I got that because I really wanted to focus on landscape photography, so it's really cool. So, okay, so let's just go through the last couple chats here. Wow, do we have a new guest here tonight? King Kruk. I love RF 100 2.8. Welcome, by the way. Let me get this full screen here. Welcome to the live stream tonight, King Kruk. He loves the RF 100 2.8, but I've only used it for video on Komodo, but I'm loving using the Zeus Melvis Macro 100 for photo and video. So, yeah, the last thing I wanted to do is we'll end this question, this poll, 79% still say they have more than one camera and lens, and 21% say they have one camera or none. We're going to end that poll. So it's officially done. So if you have a favorite lens, put that in the chat tonight before we get off the air. What is your favorite lens? I would have to say my favorite lens is still my 24 to 70 walk around 2.8. My second most favorite lens would be my 16 to 35 for landscape photography. My third favorite lens is a toss up probably between my 50 prime 1.2 and my 70 to 200 2.8 zoom lens. But again, the least used lenses in my kit are the 50 mil and the 85. I should be using the 50 for more video. It looks beautiful. The Bokeh looks good, and the 85 looks amazing. It is by far the best blurred background Bokeh lens I have. Those are all Canon, so put down your favorite. 1.158 knock is King Crux. So do you have a favorite lens, David? And Tony, do you have a favorite lens? Chio, Joe, DJ, where do you have a favorite lens? Grish, Craig, favorite lens? Before we get off the air here, come on, pop that in the chat tonight. I want to see what your favorite lens is. Okay, I'm over my time. I'm going to roll the outro, but please put those different lenses, your favorite lenses, in the chat tonight, and you might as well put your favorite camera in there as well. And maybe we'll talk more about photography, more about cameras, more about lenses in the future. Thank you, Chio, for that, and King Crux for that, Tony for that, so Joe for that. Anybody else want to pop in here your favorite lens and camera? You might as well. My favorite camera is still my 5D Mark IV, but my EOS R, I love the flip around LCD lens. That's why I use it as my main live stream camera, so I can see the exposure and all the settings on the flip around lens. So anybody else want to pop in here today with more information about what your favorites are? I would appreciate it. There's two more from Joe. There's a camera from Tony, Sony FX30, Canon M50 Mark II. That's a great little camera. Nothing wrong with that. King Crux, dude, that's pretty nice. So that's it for me tonight. Have a great week. Watch my video tomorrow on the software, ATEM software control update for the ATEM minis, the Pro, the Extremes, that whole family. Lots of cool new features. The video covers those, shows you how to use the camera, the web camera out to bring the program out on your prompter. You can bring your multi-view out on your prompter too if you have a ATEM Mini Pro or a Extreme. You can bring all the inputs out into your prompter if you want to. If you have an Extreme ISO or Extreme SDI Pro ISO. So they have more outputs for the webcam. I demo how to do that through OBS. Lots of little things, even how to update the firmware in your ATEMs. So check out that video. That will release probably around 10 a.m. my time tomorrow. And until next time, I am Keith. This is Life Journey Production Studios. And I hope you enjoyed tonight's stream. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And if you're watching this delayed and you weren't in the live chat, please put your favorite lens and please put your favorite camera in the comments as well if you get to the end of the video. I'd love to hear from you as well. So back to better lighting as we say goodnight. That's it. Tuesday night, let's roll. And hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video. But until then, be safe, be kind to the people around you, and like this book I was given to me a long time ago, do whatever it takes to win friends and influence people. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Have a great, great night, and I'll see you next time.